ultimately, when the chips are down, need a new gig or whatever that is, you're not going to get that on a random LinkedIn, job. You're going to get it through your network.
Welcome back to another episode of the Yes and podcast. Today, I have a guest for you, and we're going to talk about a topic that has a lot of meaning in my life, and I think that you're going to see more and more relevance in the corporate and in the entrepreneurial world. And so I brought a very special guest in that has a ton of experience in a variety of different areas, especially in the C-suite. And so without further ado, welcome to the Yes and podcast, Jordan.
Thank you, Benny. Nice to meet you.
Yes, it's great to be able to connect like this.
Yeah. A random LinkedIn request, and there you go. It's magic.
You know, I feel privileged because how many LinkedIn trolls do you get per day in your messages?
A few. I mean, certainly selling stuff or, random investment things or coach, I can help you with your coaching business or whatever that is. So, but, look, I also try to answer as many as I can because it's, I'm not on Instagram. I'm not on TikTok. This is my social network for the most part, right? Except for Facebook, which I go primarily into New York sports only. And so this is really the only other area that I kind of lean into.
Are you in New York right now?
I'm not. We're in San Francisco, but we'll be moving soon. So stay tuned.
Back to the East Coast?
Yeah.
Well, we could swap because I just bought a house in California. And I'm in Virginia in the studio. So if you want to swap, it's not quite New York.
Well, I hope you got insurance because that's kind of the big issue that's going on out here. So, yeah.
It is SoCal. So we only have fires and mudslides and earthquakes and floods. Other than that, we're fine.
Yeah, you don't have hurricanes, so that's good.
Yeah, exactly. See, you got to see the bright side of things.
Exactly.
So I want to, as far as networking, because you and I get to have this conversation and hopefully we carry this friendship past this podcast recording. I'm like you, like 95% of my messages are people trying to be transactional. And so growing up in business, I used to use networking a whole lot. How do you think that that has changed, and how would you recommend those that are entering into their entrepreneurial ventures use networking? Because I honestly don't think, and I'm open for obviously your opinion, that's why you're here. How would it have felt if I was like, I don't want to hear your opinion? But like, I don't think you can have a business without networking.
No, I mean, networking is really important, and I think a lot of people do it wrong. I actually had a conversation with a dear friend of mine who used to be my boss a couple times, actually, and we really talked about this, about how not to be transactional, right? How
Mm-hmm.
to be part of the network, part of being a resource, right? Whereas keeping up with somebody, whatever that amount of time is, it's every 3 months, it's every 6 months, and if you're in town, try and see them, even if they're not available, you made the effort. But I think that ultimately when the chips are down, right, and that things don't always go well in business, or, you need a new gig or whatever that is, you're not going to get that on a random LinkedIn, job. You're going to get it through your network.
Yeah.
Right. And it is the most important asset behind, like having cash or, investments, right? You have to think of it as it's an asset in your portfolio, and it needs to be grown. It needs to be nurtured. It's almost everything, really.
That I agree with that so much. And I also have shared with clients, and, if I'm doing like a speaking on networking, that I think that your network and your net worth are correlated.
For sure. I 100% agree with that. And, to be honest, I could have done better on my network over the years, and probably was a little bit too transactional with some folks. But, it's never too late to start, repairing that. And as a matter of fact, in the last year, I've reached out to people and be like, hey, I haven't talked to you in a long time. Just love to catch up. I don't want anything. Just want to say hello,
Yeah.
see how you are. How's your family? And then what's amazing is that people are always like, well, if I hear of anything or if I, and sometimes things come through and sometimes, but that's not the purpose of it. The purpose of it
Yeah.
was really, really, literally to catch up and see how they're doing because whoever it was, whenever it was important at that time.
That's your warm network. Those are, let's quote unquote, like hot leads. How specifically going back to like the LinkedIn messaging and the amount of trash that we're getting in our inboxes, in our message for LinkedIn, and the fact that maybe 85% of what we're doing is all virtual now, especially in a post COVID world. How do you network?
Yeah, I mean, I still think that there are opportunities with LinkedIn in areas of shared interest. So where you went to school, or if, you worked at a company and that, you're sort of doing your second degree types of folks. And, you
Okay.
worked at Google, I worked at Google. And so, because especially around the same time. If you're able to find people who, whether you went to school around the same time or worked at a place around the same time, even if it was a really big place, that shared experience at that time is something that is very valuable. And so you must know XYZ person. Oh, I do. I worked with them on this one project. And then, so I think you have to really take it a step further, right? Dig a little deeper to figure out like where your shared connection is.
And how do you get over the transactional aspect?
You got to give to get, right? And I think that's part of it is just like, look, yes, I'm asking you a question or, getting your opinion on something. And by the way, I am here for you if you have anything that you need. And so and then you have to answer the bell
Mhm.
when they call, right? So, I've been consulting with a couple companies, and the they're all come through my network, right? And it wasn't anything immediate. And one of them actually was, I had no idea that the person who was running this company was doing this thing. I was actually asking him about something else that somebody was going to hire me or wanted to hire me for a CEO role, and they were attached to the venture arm, and I went, I didn't know the venture arm, so I kind of saw, oh, this person, I know I haven't talked to that person in 6 years, so reached out. What are you doing? Oh, this. Oh, by the way, I need some help. What's your bandwidth these days? I mean, it was like, I wasn't even like, so, um, you have to get on the phone or you have to get on the email and you have to do it, because it's free, number one. And, number two, it's important. So those are the things that, I think you just have to just invest your time in. It's, George Bush Sr. was famous for writing letters every day. I think he wrote like five at breakfast, and it just was every day. Okay, and actually, I think there's a book of all these letters that he wrote. Whether you agree with his politics or not is kind of irrelevant, but it was really more of he was like a master networker, right? And so I think it's important to do something every day with somebody, and I think it'll pay dividends.
Okay, I'm gonna put you on the spot. What do you do every day?
50 push-ups. This,
How's that build your network, Jordan?
well, it gets me ready for the day. I do try and reach out to somebody, maybe it's not every day, but it's pretty close, right? And by the way, that could be somebody who I'm really good friends with, who I just, want to send them, something that I thought they think would be interesting or whatever that is. So, it's just the activity of not being so enclosed. I mean, I work out of my house, right? And I think to your point earlier, like COVID really created a big just change in how we
Yeah.
do everything, right? And so it's just really important to reach out,
Yeah.
mental health wise, everything. It's important.
That kind of goes into this topic that we hinted at that I honestly think it's going to be huge. And coming from a background as a therapist and working in a lot of corporations over the years as a consultant and focusing on the white, like, elephant in the room that, I don't think it's a colored elephant. I think it's a pink elephant.
It's an elephant.
It's an elephant for sure.
It's
That's what we know.
large elephant. Yeah. So okay.
Now at least we can say mental health in the workplace. For a long time, it was veiled in productivity and all of these different kinds of things. The thing that in the land of DEI training and all of that, that I think missed the mark was the psychological safety in the workplace. And now I'm seeing more and more of that. But what you and I were talking about is where leadership and where the responsibility of that safety falls to first. I've seen a lot of companies, and I want, in your vast experience, to know like what you've seen as far as being force fed well being and psychological safety and training, inclusion training, versus what you've seen been the most effective in moving the needle.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. It's a bit of a loaded question too. It's hard to answer. All I can say is that um, one of the things that we all evolve, right? And one of the things that I've evolved over the last 10 years, particularly because I've had some, family traumatic things that have happened, is leading with empathy. Right. And that, coming from a place like being trained from a place like General Electric back in the Jack Welch era, that was not leading by empathy. That was, just it was neutron Jack for a reason. So over time, you're kind of like, there's got to be a better way. And then I just personally like, I think you have to just do things that make people know that, hey, we have a job to do. We have, goals that we have to accomplish. But it is also important for you, anybody, right, to take a break, spend time with your family, um, work out, even if that's just taking a walk, and that helps everything, right? And so, but it does start at the top, and being somebody of empathy is something I've learned over time, and it's still a work in progress, but I'm a lot better now than I was 10 years ago with folks.
Okay. Well, if we can get a little bit more personal, obviously business has changed in the last 40 to 50 years. So, something that I know you're working with a lot of your clients on is mainly business over 50.
Well, that is, yes. I mean, I'm definitely. It's not really clients. It's people who have reached out through networks. Particularly, I've been working with the International Leap Network, which has been a nice thing for me. And but seeing people who are kind of in my situation, life wise, right, which is they've done a lot. They've been working for 20 years plus and looking for how they kind of fit into the next realm, right? Because the big picture, which I think everybody, another elephant in the room, okay, is that
What color is this one?
this one's green, okay, because it if we live to 85, 90, and we stop working at 65 or forced to stop working at 65, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, and I don't think that financial literacy, which does go hand in hand with mental health, by the way, has effectively been taught. Right.
So, it's a problem at 65 financially or because of mental health or both?
Both. I mean, I think that I've read studies that generally speaking, people who are a little more financially comfortable, again, it's not a panacea for
Yeah.
everything for sure, but certainly that it takes a load off, and knowing that you're well cared for and that you have money for healthcare and food and, a lifestyle that's, it's opposed to, um, kind of eking it out over your retirement years. And I think that's scary for a lot of people, scary for me. And so I have been trying to help people at least think about 50 plus differently, like you're the CEO of your own kind of portfolio here. So,
Okay.
okay, so there is okay, first is, what are your costs? Okay, just right. I mean, just really doing a budget like you would at work. And a lot of people don't, which is amazing to me.
They don't have a P&L of their life.
They have to put a P&L together. You
Yeah.
have to understand what you are spending
Yeah.
across everything, taxes, insurance,
Yeah, that's such a good point.
right? And just so you understand, okay, now I know what I owe
Mhm.
every month, and the food and all that too. So you're just gonna budget it out. And then you're like, all right, well, this is how much I need to make, all right, in order to make that work. And then
Okay.
obviously, that could be, okay, I need to go work for somebody, or I start up an LLC, or combination thereof, right?
Yeah.
LLCs are great because you can take things off from a tax perspective, like your internet service, or, things like that. Um, and this is by no means any kind of financial advice.
Financial
No,
advice.
not
Here's the
whatsoever. I'm
NFA.
just saying how I did it, okay? And then so it calmed me down, all right? And I was like, all right, I know what my burn rate is, all right, in
Yeah.
the entrepreneur terms, right? And so what's the revenue I need to get? And then the question is, how am I going to get it,
Mhm.
right? And there's active, there's passive. Then how much am I going to put away, right? And let the money work for you. Like, the biggest mistake I made was not learning this concept of, cost dollar averaging.
Mm.
I mean, if I had known that when I was, or at least maybe paid attention to it when I was 21, right? So I'm telling this to my kids, and I was like, look, you can do whatever you want, right? And because I got one who's about to graduate college, and I got one who's in college, and so I'm like, all you need to do is put away 10-15 bucks a day, and then put that into the S&P 500, which averages about 11% historically, and then it just compounds and all that, and just keep adding. And by the way, by the time you're 65, you'll have 8, 9, $10 million in the bank. Great. And if it's in a Roth IRA, then even better, because you don't have to pay taxes on it.
But then you're still going to have to work because your mental health is at risk.
Well, you have to, but at least you understand what you could do whatever you want, right? And I think that's the other part, which I think helps the mental health.
Yeah.
It's yeah. So
It's interesting because I think around 400K is when the happiness,
yeah, I read that.
it doesn't matter, like over the 400K. And I think that in working with a lot of people, there's this illusion that at the 7-figure or, 2 comma club is when happiness is. I see a lot of people that, I mean, I even have coached people that have billions and they're not any happier.
No, and I just think that's a big part of that. But knowing that you are secure, and something has to happen to those folks, right? I mean, something traumatic, to realize, to take stock in their lives, I think.
Yeah.
I had that happen to me, a health thing in our family that is very serious. And so really thought about, well, if this goes really south, like what am I? Like, what are we doing? Like, what is it that would make me happy every day? And so, it's important to be able to take stock, but unfortunately, sometimes it just takes a big event or something like that to wake people up. you know?
It goes back to the self-leadership that we were talking about. So what if it doesn't take till 50 to realize that you wanna make some different decisions? What if it's not first brought on by your corporation as far as, like, Fed training? And what if it doesn't have to be set in motion by a traumatic event? I mean, I have multiple heart conditions, so and that started at 14. So I kind of already had this awareness of life, and what would it look like if it didn't take that?
Well, that's when I think also it's going back to the original thing we were talking about with my kids, right? Which is just like set yourself up for success down the line, right? And understand at least on the financial side, but also on the kind of like career life side, right? What is it that you actually really need? You
Yeah.
know, and that's different for everybody, right? And but it you have to think about that. And I know some people who I went to college with who, on both sides of the spectrum. Some people just, they wanted the brass ring and they got it. Okay. And then I got others who literally one guy who I love and admire, and I haven't talked to him in years and years and years and years, but he literally is walking the earth. Okay, so he just is traveling from place to place. He doesn't have he doesn't have a wife. He doesn't have any kids. He's just spends time in India and Asia, and just he's done this for a long, long, long time. And I mean, from my understanding, from people who have been in touch with him, he's perfectly fulfilled. He works when he needs a little money. He, all the things that he can do to survive. And I'm sure he has something, put away from the beginning, and that's great. But eh, I mean, how do you weigh those two spectrums? One person, huge in private equity, one person walking the earth. Like, what's the, so
That's so beautiful, though.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, I think it's a self-discovery thing. And and that's where I think people just need to kind of reflect, and maybe it's a book that they read, maybe it's, something else that inspires them. Maybe it's just
Jordan, what's the AI prompt?
yeah. Uh
Assume the role of
yeah, I have to think about that one. I think it is give me 50 ideas of like how I can be ultimately happy. Look,
I'm resisting so hard right now, not pulling up a tab to type that in and just see
yeah,
what the answer
do
would
it.
be.
I think you just do it. I mean, and it'd be, or I don't say happy, but ultimately fulfilled in life, right? So, maybe that's the better one. So, but again, I think it's more that it is different for everybody.
Jordan told me to do it. All right. Oh, you know what? Number 1, cultivate meaningful relationships.
See?
I feel like we just had that conversation.
We did. I'm telling you, if you're without your network and meaningful relationships with your family, with your friends, with even like quite frankly, I get a lot of pleasure in my neighborhood, like my community, right? It's we're there's a shared experience that I think I know that there's that expression of what is it? Fences,
Like, you're the sum total
no
of the 6
fences like
people.
has good neighbors, but I do look, I think when you're living in an urban environment like San Francisco, I think it's important to cultivate some relationships because, you never know when you're going to need some help, right? Or,
Yeah, yeah.
and we have block parties every year, and it's a good way to kind of keep people, together and all the things. So,
I was gonna message you yesterday because we already had to reschedule this once, and it was a non-negotiable for me to do this today and not reschedule it. And I have my 4-month-old because my parents went out to the California house. Long story short, I was gonna email you and be like, "There's a good chance we have a 4-month-old in the studio with us." But my neighbor stepped in, and my neighbor's watching him so that I could come and do this recording. So it's just the value of relationships.
it is. And so, and it's, but again, it's like, they're like, I hate to quote Woody Allen, but it was like that, and from Annie Hall, he was like, a relationship is like a shark, either has to continue moving forward or else it dies.
Yeah.
And so you don't want a dead shark. And so I think that's right. I think that's kind of the same thing. You have to nurture the relationships, um, all the time. And, it's, smiling at your neighbors, even if it's a nice, being warm or calling up a friend or making sure your brother's okay or your sister or whatever that is. It takes work, but it's, the rewards are huge.
Yeah. I love that. So, Jordan, unfortunately, push-ups was not on the 50.
Exercise not there? Really? So, okay.
We got
There's
create a vision
studies.
board. Do you have a vision board, Jordan?
No, there's studies that says exercise, it helps mental health and happiness. I don't know what
We've
that.
got journaling, meditation. Yeah, curiosity is on here, but,
Yeah, meditation is I can't I'm like that's to me meditation is like, oh, I'm gonna go take a nap. So, it just like it's instant sleep for me. I could never do it.
I'm gonna send you a link to my breathwork, channel that I use because I used to be the worst at meditation because of my brain. I'm also gonna email you this
Yeah,
list.
email the list, put it up on the thing. Like so
Yeah, well, that's what we'll do is I'll put this list below the show notes too, so you've got it. But breath work really helped to get into that subconscious space and shut off the ego and the conscious mind without driving me insane, just making my grocery list when I'm supposed to be meditating.
yeah, it's just everything flows in during the quiet time. So that's why I would love to learn how to do it, but it's either like that, which is things flood in, or I fall asleep. There's like nothing in between. So I'm clearly doing it wrong. So
You're not doing it wrong. Are you open if I send you the breathwork stuff?
listen, I'm at this stage in my life, I'm open to pretty much everything. So yeah.
What is the next? Are you going to go walk the world? What's the next plan that you're looking forward to?
You know, um, I've spent a lot of time over the last since I left the corporate world, working with companies, or in some cases actually potentially creating companies that are doing something interesting and meaningful.
Mhm,
Okay,
mhm.
or meaningful, right? It doesn't have to be both. But so I've got a few of those right now. I'm working, I mentioned in consulting, and another one just popped up, and I'm working, setting up a couple companies on things that I think just interesting, and using the entrepreneurial skills, but in a different way. I don't know, starting things up and knowing to how to do all that is great, but, in this case, it's other people's money, which is, also which okay, sometimes it's my own, but I'm trying to create a portfolio of things because some things are gonna work and some things aren't, and that's
Mhm,
okay.
mhm.
Um, and and just taking little pieces along the way, and if something really hits, then great. Again, I don't need a lot, um, for our lives now. Like
Yeah.
I mean, we need to cover healthcare and we want to be able to cover where we live and all that kind of thing. Like I just, we don't do the keeping up with the Joneses stuff, like and any of that thing. So it's just that I know what I need and I'm just focused on that. And anything above that is gravy, put it away, savings, great, awesome. And if it doesn't work out, then something else. But having the muscle memory of how to do that kind of thing in a repeatable fashion,
Yeah.
and building that portfolio, I think was the most important thing that I learned, and the confidence that is like, okay, I can do this, right? And so that's what I've been focused on, and then my family's health. I mean, just that's those. Honestly,
Build but continuing to build and nurture your network.
yeah, and the network. I mean, that's really the three things. I don't really need much else. So I cook a lot. So I don't even, I actually been focusing in on my cooking and my culinary sort of prowess, right? Yeah, I'm very inspired by The Bear, and I don't know if you ever watched that show, but it's gotta watch it. You gotta watch it.
I don't do a ton of
No,
TV.
no, this is one of the best shows I've ever seen in my life. It's actually, from an entrepreneurship standpoint, it's a must watch. as a
What
matter
is
of
it?
The Bear on
Okay, like
on
the animal.
yeah, but it's about a Chicago family restaurant, and guy
Okay.
who sort of breaks.
I'll give you an episode. You're gonna do breath work. I will watch an episode.
Well, yeah. So the greatest episode when it comes to transformation, when you got to go through it, but is called Forks. It's in the
Forks.
second season.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But you have to
That's
like
my second
watch it,
promise.
and the first season is very intense, but they're only like a half hour. All right. And then
Okay.
but when you get through it, and at the first season at the end is just like mind blowing. So but it won a ton of awards, and I rarely, and having come from TV, I know what a good show is. I will tell you that this is a freaking great show.
Well, I'm married to a stuntman, so and I retired from doing stunts. So,
How did you do
we're not
stunts with a
opposed to
heart
watching.
condition?
I know that really wasn't a great idea, and I did it, and I lived. I don't know if you knew the end of that story, but I lived.
No, I got that. Actually, I just figured that out just now. So, so
Um, okay, so typically I have guests answer what their definition of a yes and lifestyle is. And I want to give you a second to think about that with something that I think you'll appreciate that just came to mind about relationships. In having 14 companies over the last 15 years, one of the things that I love is M&A, because if rather than starting another company or hiring for something and training on something that I need for a company, being able to invest in or acquire a company and bolt it onto an existing company to make it more profitable feels amazing when it works out. When it fails, it's a dumpster fire. And I feel like that's really relationships too, is it's kind of the acquisition of skills and relationship currency and their network and their skills, and wisdom and ability and experiences. So that was just my thoughts. If you want to comment on that, but I think relationships are like mergers and acquisitions.
yeah, I don't think it's, I've seen M&A go well, and I've seen M&A go very badly. And unfortunately, I've been kind of on the both ends of that. But you know, I think that overall, it does, to your point, comes down to people. I mean,
Yeah.
and how you treat them, and so, it's not. And these are part of the learnings, of just
Yeah.
like how to treat people well, when they're coming into a new situation. And, again, things that I've done well in some cases and not well in others, but learned. And, so I think the important thing though is, what is the value that is created when the two things kind of come together, right? And creating a shared vision. And because most deals do fail. 50% of marriages fail, right? So how do you get on the right side of the ledger and I think part of that is just empathy. It's listening. It's understanding. Um,
Yeah.
and I also think it's having a kind of a vision of kind of where you want to go with whoever it is, right? So I think that if you can do those things, there's no guarantees, but the odds are probably with you.
A Hunger Games quote to end the episode.
So, again, it's like not everything ends up roses, right? But you got, all you can ask for is an opportunity and a chance to succeed, right? And I think that if you set yourself up for success, you have a better shot than others.
Yeah. And if you fail, it's data.
Yeah, what is it? I just read Thomas Edison is like, I didn't fail. I just found the 10,000 ways that it wouldn't work or something like that.
Yeah.
So, which I thought was a good way of kind of
We
looking at
need
it.
like a Jordan Hoffner like quote a day calendar.
It might be. I do, and because I read a lot, so it just and then sometimes it's funny. Some things, little things, stick with me, but like somebody asked me like, what's the name of the book you're reading? I was like, I have no idea. So so it's like selective memory on some of this stuff. But I am reading actually this crazy book called The Fund. I don't know if you've heard of this
Mm-mm.
book. Yeah, it's called about Bridgewater Capital, and it's just it's bananas book, but it's it's like uh worth a peek into the world of hedge funds, whether it's true or not. That's like everyone denies it, but like even if it's all made up, it's really
Interesting. Yeah.
juicy and interesting. Yeah. So yeah. So anyway,
Okay. I know I've kept you after. So, yes, and lifestyle.
yes, I've been in the C-suite, and I don't think that's important. Uh,
I love that one.
um, I think what's important is that uh, I like to find things that are interesting and work with interesting and smart people for to create new events, new assets, new things. I mean, I always have loved the technology and the innovation sort of part of business, right? And I just really appreciate people much more now than I ever have. So
I love that. I'm so glad that you stayed on to give us that.
I always like to have a big ending. So yeah, so
There we go.
that's the television producer in me. So I always have a big ending. So
Well, we can leave it of a cliffhanger of having you back as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Listen, all good. So but I really appreciate you reaching out and growing a media entity. It's hard, and so I appreciate all the work that goes into that, and so thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for the wisdom that you shared, the perspective that you shared, and also your willingness to kind of be transparent and share vulnerably. I know that that is really appreciated by both me and our audience.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Of course. All right. Well, that concludes another episode of the Yes and podcast. Jordan, I do want to take a second to thank you guys for wherever you were listening to us, whether it was walking the earth or driving into your private fund and private equity office. If you have any questions for Jordan, just make sure that you LinkedIn message him and make sure it's not transactional. Get his attention, reference the podcast. All right, till the next time of another episode of the Yes and podcast. I'm Bunny Young. Thank you so much for listening.